with the absolute state of things right now, we've got to come at you with another edition in just the anthology of Democrats just being the worst.
Oh, yeah.
And failing to meet the moment. And for this week, I really just wanted to show you guys all a clip from a CNN town hall with a Connecticut representative, Jahana Hayes. And man, if this doesn't show why like the centrist wing of the party and really anybody that's not a strict progressive like AOC is just failing to meet the moment right now, I don't know what will convince you. So I think it best if we just kind of let the clip roll, speak for itself, and then get Jeremy's candid reaction to this one.
I've never seen this, folks. I'm hearing this with you.
It's pretty good.
All right.
I mean, can I ask you, because you also supported that law, so I'm glad that you want to weigh in, because the question was about due process, and since it's for people who are accused and charged with crimes but not necessarily convicted of them, what do you make of the concerns about due process?
So I understand your concerns, and I understand how immigrants across this country who are here legally and have followed the law are being terrorized right now because they are unsure of what happens next. I voted for that piece of legislation because of a very specific provision, and it was if it caused injury or death to a police officer, which was one small piece of it. There were other things about, to your point, Caitlin, someone who was was charged but hadn't been convicted. As I've thought about it over the last couple months, I probably would have.
I voted for it because it virtue signaled about cops, but there were other things in there about like just removing due process rights from people who are being accused of a crime that I just kind of ignored because they were virtue signaling about cops.
I was about to say I voted for the no more due process bill because it made me feel good about my connections with police officers. Dog, oh my God, Black Lives Matter did not go far enough.
I'm saying, man,
making Democrats feel bad
they
about
really
their
dropped ACABs just like way too quick, But she doesn't stop there. That may be the most damning part. But just here's the rest of like I guess the centrist brain rot.
As I've thought about it over the last couple months, I probably would have voted differently. It's a vote that I regret. But coming into this Congress, I trusted that this administration, we would have some, if they wanted to have border security, they wanted to work with Democrats, that we could actually move forward. I'm not really sure of that because I've seen the rhetoric that has come out and the attacks that have been targeted towards immigrants. So I'm very cautious and careful when I'm negotiating my votes moving forward.
I feel like I'm going crazy because Trump said the entire campaign exactly what he was going to do on immigration and on tariffs. And he is doing exactly both of those things precisely as he spelled out. And for some reason, like liberals and even moderates are confused.
Why would you have thought that he wanted to work with you and negotiate with you on a principled border security bill when in the last year of Joe Biden's presidency, he tanked an actual border security bill that had everything in it that he wanted because he did not want to give Democrats the win? What made you think he cared at all about your opinion? What made you think that he would in any way, him or Mike Johnson or any of the other Republicans in either chamber, the House or the Senate, come at this in a good faith negotiation?
Jesus Christ,
That's just insane. Like, you failed before you even got into office.
Like, you voted for the Lake and Riley Act for the stupidest goddamn reason. I have more respect for the actual anti-immigration Democrat because at least I know where they literally stand. I have more respect
for Alyssa Slotkin on this.
At least they stand on business. I think they're wrong and morally evil, but at least they stand on business. She votes for the Lake and Riley Act for a stupid-ass reason, and then she tries to backtrack because she thought, the Trump administration would be more charitable?
Yeah.
Or be more collaborative with the Democratic Party?
And it's like she's talking about the end, like, when I negotiate my votes, you knew what was in the bill before you voted for it. You could have not voted for the bill after you negotiated and they said, no, fuck off. I don't understand what they're thinking right now.
Democrats could have tanked the bill.
Absolutely.
Democrats could have taken the bill. Maybe not in the House of Representatives, but it didn't have to be this way.
Yeah, they could have tanked the Lake and Riley Act, and they could have tanked the big budget. And, you know, those things are a good reason why we're here now in this current state that we're at right now. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting moment in time.
Jeez, man. I hate the Democratic Party. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's another episode of Head in the Office. We're coming at you. Today, we're rugless. No rug in the studio.
We had a little bit of water issue.
A little bit of water issue in the studio, but we're just rugless for today. But we're still going to bring you an episode with the news.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing is crumbling.
Everything is good in Hiddo World over here. Welcome back to another episode. This week, we're going to be talking about tariffs. And Trump's kind of backing down in a very confusing way.
Yeah.
Really annoying that he decided to do that immediately after our episode dropped last Wednesday.
Yeah. And then, he immediately after our episode dropped, and then he did another thing, and then he walked it back, and they did another thing, and he walked it back, and the stock market went woo, 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 woo. So
I was having a fun time watching it.
Because I got to work like every day last week, and I'm like, all right, it's market open. Let me see where things are going. And on the days that I thought it was going to tank, it went up because new news came out. And then the days I thought it was going to stay going up, it tanked because new news came out. I'm like, what's happening?
Apparently, the president does have a recession button. And
only a recession button though, not a stop the recession button.
Yeah. We'll also be talking about immigration and how the vibes continue to deteriorate on that policy issue. We got to talk about voting a little bit later on, and a voter ID bill that Republicans are looking to pass. But lots of stuff coming at you this episode. But before we get into that, I'll remind you, if you want early access to all of our content, become a patron, and the amount of content is about to double in a few weeks.
Double, literally, that's crazy.
So if you want early access to all of that over on the Patreon, remember, we'll be starting our new posting schedule the first full week of May. I believe that week starts like the 3rd, Monday the 3rd or something.
3 short weeks until the new Hiddo paradigm shift. Be ready, folks.
So be ready for that, but that's in a couple of weeks. Another thing you can do if you want to engage with the Hiddo community is cast a vote in the community art contest. We got some beautiful submissions. Congratulations to our finalists.
Yes.
Check it out in the form that's in the description. You'll have to sign into Google Gmail to be able to access it, so we can limit people to 1 vote per person. But that is in the description. That form will close on April 25th. That's a Friday. So we got about 2 weeks of voting.
Yes.
Check it out and cast your vote, and we'll see who's immortalized forever.
Please, this is probably the most important vote you'll cast this year.
Absolutely.
Everybody's talking about how this isn't an election year, yada, yada, yada. We got a special election running right here in the Hiddo coffers.
Yeah, so make sure you check that out. Link will be posted everywhere down in the description right now. You can also do all the usual things, get some merch, 40% off Ground News, all of our socials in the description. And lastly, you can leave a 5-star review on Apple.
You absolutely can. Today we have, 2?
I think do we have 2 or do we have more than 2? Let me check.
Oh, shit.
I had it pulled up and then it went away.
No, I think it's 2.
Just 2? Okay, go ahead.
This first one from RFK's Brainworm. Appreciate your input. The #1 local, state, federal, and geopolitical podcast of all time.
Truth.
First and foremost, I condemn Hamas and all forms of political violence, as do I. I first started listening to this podcast in my sophomore year of high school, and I'm now a freshman in college. Devastating time for that, I know. I am the most politically aware out of my friends who are largely centrist median voters.
Boo.
So this podcast is necessary to keep me sane each week. As a disabled and unemployed college student, I'm unfortunately trapped for the foreseeable future as a Wednesday and maybe Friday weenie. What can we say? However, I one day hope to ascend to a Sunday supremacist, or whatever they'll be called once you're releasing 2 episodes a week. I'm extremely excited for more frequent episodes, as in this very horrible time to exist, this podcast is often the highlight of my week, and I look forward to every episode. These 2 cis white boys do a spectacular job of setting themselves apart from the rest by providing amazing takes, high-quality political analysis, and funny jokes to help lessen the unrelenting blows to sanity that could send anyone running away from politics altogether. Wow. Well, at least you're a freshman in college and not a graduating senior, because I would hate to be a graduating senior in this economy.
Yeah.
My prayers out to you all that are in that position. And if any of you are soon-to-be retirees, I'm so sorry your portfolio got set back like 5 years.
Yeah, people lost thousands of dollars on their 401ks.
$1 trillion swings this week, just up and down and up and down.
Feels bad, but thank you for leaving that review, RFK's Brainworm. Escaped the body like the thing controlling Gato, you know what I'm talking about? Sitting inside his head, just controlling him. But now I'm glad to see that you're in college. And it's a bad time for it, but hopefully you don't lose whatever, scholarships or funding you're operating with.
Exactly.
Because that would be rough. But best of luck to you. This last one from Shafe Dog, Woke Mind Virus in Texas. They say, first, I most definitely condemn all forms of political violence. I'm a gray-haired lefty pinko commie down here in Texas, and I listen to you every week. The Hiddo Dudes are the best news source, and everybody should listen. Thanks for being so well-researched and for pushing us all to think and learn. Thanks to my son for turning me onto the pod. I guess I raised him right.
Shouts out your parenting skills.
So many of the people in our bubble hear words that support their position and then spew them back out of their mouth, skipping their brain. You both push us to think and research each issue in each story. Wish everyone would take this approach. Keep it up. Big congrats on the upcoming moves in the new Hiddo schedule.
That's right.
Thank you so much for that review. And
Hiddo, a real journalistic operation. You know what I'm saying?
We're doing original research.
Yep. We're primary sources.
It's peer reviewed. And you can cite us in your papers.
I'm certainly a peer.
Yeah.
He's a peer.
I appear.
You all are our peers.
That's
you know what I'm
right.
saying?
So thank you for those reviews. If you want your 5-star review read on the show, leave it on Apple Podcasts, or if you can't, you can DM it to us, or if you're a patron, you can send it to us on Patreon, and we'll try to get to it. One other thing before we get into our tariff coverage here, postcards.
Postcards.
They're sitting right behind the camera.
Yes, they are.
Right now, I can look at them.
But can you look at them?
I think
we
we cooked pretty hard with these ones.
Yeah.
They will be sent out probably towards the end of April. So if your name isn't on the list yet, make sure you sign up. If you are a patron, $5 tier and up, you can get free postcards every 2 months from the Hito Boys. So those will be coming soon. And make sure you're there.
Exactly. Make sure you're there. Make sure you hit that sign up. Make sure you don't miss out on this month.
Yeah.
Because the next one, not coming for 2 more months.
That's right. That's right. That's a long time.
That's a really long
time. In Trump's economy, that's too long. All right, let's get into the tariff news here. After a remarkably confusing week, we sort of have a better idea of what's happening with these Trump tariffs. And by better idea, I mean extreme volatility. Because things seem to change with the weather.
You know, the lack of clarity is in some ways clarity itself. Because the way that things have happened this week leave no room to even attempt to analyze them in any coherent way. We have trade advisors and commerce secretaries and press secretaries all making statements that do not align with each other, saying that they're the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and then walking those statements back the next day in ways that still don't align with each other, but still kind of tie into what they previously said. Everyone's pretending they got a win on this when nobody really won anything, especially the American consumer.
Yeah. Basically negotiating against himself for no payoff is what Trump did. And, you know, this is remarkably Biden-coded stuff. Like, I saw many headlines throughout the week where Trump was asked about something or he's shown something and he's like, oh, I haven't seen that. Really reminded me of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
When people presented him with like polling numbers or dissatisfaction numbers and he was like, well, those aren't my numbers.
It's kind of like these guys. It's like horseshoe theory is real, but just for these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're almost meeting, but not quite. That part where they're not meeting in the issue is just the overt fascism that we'll talk about later. But like,
yeah, it's very strange. But last episode, we reported Trump's psychotic tariff scheme, which included fun numbers like 46% on Vietnam or like 25% on Japan, something like that. If you recall, they had this insane calculation based on trade deficits that we talked about didn't really make any sense at all.
Yeah.
These tariffs went fully into effect on Wednesday, April 9th, early in the morning. They lasted less than 12 hours because 12 hours after that, Trump dropped the tariffs, applied a 10% blanket tariff to everybody we have a trade deficit with, and then claimed victory because something like 75 or 80 countries reached out to negotiate, quote unquote. That is the claim. We haven't seen evidence that 80 countries have reached out to negotiate.
Man, what blew me away kind of about that tariff situation, because there were like, I feel like there were like 2 or 3 distinct tariff situations that we had last week go on. The first was the initial market crash that happened like Monday morning?
Yeah.
Because the tariffs were going to go into effect 2 days later, the markets were still reacting. And then we had probably what I describe as just like an America moment where a fake tweet went out.
Yes.
A fucking fake tweet went out from a shitpost account on Twitter that said that there was going to be a 90-day pause on the tariffs, and the market reacted to the fake tweet in one of the most historic upturns that the market has ever seen.
Yeah. And it wasn't just because of the tweet. It was because I think CNBC and Reuters ran with it.
Yeah,
if it was a real headline. And that made people like, you know, and reinvest in the stock market, buy the dip and whatnot. Yeah. People were desperate for these tariffs to be called off. Absolutely
clamoring for any piece of information that they could find so that they could buy this dip and they could predict that dip. Yeah. And I mean, it proves the stock market is fake.
Oh, yeah.
It always is. And I mean, if you actually believe that the stock market is run on like mostly market principles, buddy,
it's a slot machine.
It's all speculation.
Yeah, like, it's a slot machine founded basically on 401ks. And also notice, I saw somebody point this out this past week, despite all the market volatility, Social Security payments kept going out. Nothing changed with Social Security payments. Same amount that you get every time that you're approved for the government.
Pretty gas.
But your 401k probably dipped, tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you probably had to delay retirement.
Yeah, this is why government programs free from market influence are very, very important, because shit like this will happen because presidents are stupid and make bad decisions. But to be clear on this, Trump called for these just insane tariffs. And he said repeatedly from like the weekend until Tuesday or even like Wednesday before he called them off, he was like, I'm not calling these tariffs off. Yeah. He was asked repeatedly, are these for negotiation or are these permanent? And he said, well, it could be both. Just no clarity whatsoever, even from Trump himself. Like, different hours, he had different responses here. And then I'm guessing he saw the market tank, especially bonds. I think bonds are what freaked him out especially. Yeah. And then he backed off, issued the 90-day pause, and then declared victory. It's literally the George W. Bush standing in front of the mission accomplished sign. Like, that is literally what this is.
Words are so hard to describe what happened last week, especially like a couple days after the fact, too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We've talked about how this administration feels like it's been around for just... It feels like it's been all 4 years in these last, like, what, almost 90 days so far. It's been 3 months. Last week especially felt like a year in of itself.
Oh, yeah.
With all just the tariff, no tariff, tariff, no take it, no tariff, market crash, market rebound, market crash, market rebound. Every time I logged onto Twitter, it was either lefties posting the red, everything's down in the stock market, it's so over, or conservatives coming back and saying, look at how fucking stupid these liberals are, everything's in the green, this is what I voted for.
Yeah.
And then I'd look again and the market's red. Like, there was no way to really get your head around any of what was going on last week unless you're just watching the market the whole time with like 3 news feeds pulled up.
Also, all the conservatives posting like, oh, we're back in the green ignores the fact that like we lost 6 months of progress.
Yeah,
and we didn't regain all of it again.
I was gonna say the green is like green relative to the like massive red from last week. So that's not really the win you think it is. What happened to Benny Johnson saying that money's not real and losing money builds character?
Suddenly money's real when it fits the narrative he's trying to push. Right?
Exactly. Which was insane that we like let them get away with that. Oh, yeah. We didn't on this show, but like, how did more news outlets not get out there and say conservatives are telling you it doesn't matter when you lose money? Conservatives are telling you it doesn't matter, you can't retire.
Mm-hmm.
If Joe Biden had a single red day, they were screaming about the stock market.
Yeah.
They wouldn't shut the fuck up about anything.
When there were dips that were not related to him whatsoever during 2022 or 23 or something like that, they freaked out.
They were the biggest fucking babies whenever anything and this is like the like essence of the conservative, I guess the modern like American alt media conservative, your Benny Johnsons, your Tucker Carlsons, your Ben Shapiro, Tucker Carlson now that he got fired. They just whine.
Yeah.
They do nothing but whine, and the backflips that they do and the mental gymnastics that they do to try and justify these moves that make no fucking sense is insane.
Yeah.
And it can only be described as cult behavior or just like extreme loyalists.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I think this like American version of fascism is kind of sauceless.
Yeah.
There's no like national embarrassment story, right?
Yeah.
Like Hitler in World War II, he was like, we were embarrassed by World War I and it was because, you know, the Jews within the country, they betrayed us, whatever. There's no national embarrassment to talk about. They try to make the national embarrassment seem like us having like trade deficits is the embarrassment.
Which it's like, nobody knows what a trade deficit is.
It's too complicated of a narrative, and it's just like life isn't bad enough for that narrative to really work. Like shit's not good. I think people flocked to Trump because of some confluence of American history and existing material conditions, but shit isn't as bad as it needs to be for him to be able to sell the argument that like it's trade deficits that are causing us the embarrassment.
It feels like conservative groups are still trying to make it seem like lockdowns, COVID lockdowns were like the national embarrassment, despite that happening under Trump. I can't tell you how many times I saw people this week on Twitter start mentioning lockdowns as like a rebut to like, oh, look at the shitty things Trump is doing. They're like, oh, even though Trump locked down the economy, I digress. I digress. This shit is stupid.
Now, of course, the tariffs aren't gone completely. There's still a 145% tariff on China. That functionally just means there's no trade with China happening.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford a tariff that big.
China also put a 125 tariff on us, right?
Yeah, in response to Trump, or like 105.
Yeah, because it was like they went to 36 because Trump had his at 86. Mm-hmm. And then Trump upped it to like 125 because he said, I'm going to put 50% more on. And then they went to 86.
Yeah.
And then Trump said, all right, fuck that. We're going to 145. And they said, okay, 125. This is just bad for the consumers everywhere.
Yeah.
I saw an Amazon report that said that, okay, yeah, we're having our sellers push costs onto consumers. Like straight up, everything is more expensive now. Well, we'll be getting more expensive.
and they're going to get away with it. And they're going to get away with doing it. And nobody's going to blame them for just raising costs on consumers because they want to. Of course, 10% tariff still on everybody is still a pretty big deal. This is what we thought Trump was going to do at the beginning. Yeah. Like during the campaign, he talked about a 10% blanket tariff. And at the time we said it was crazy. It's still crazy, but just in retrospect, it's not as crazy as things were back last week before Wednesday, of course. Another thing to note, and you know, all this talk about bringing back industry with these tariffs.
Yeah.
This is an interesting little tidbit here. Trump recently announced that certain tech items like computers and smartphones are now exempt from the tariffs, including the tariffs that we have placed on China.
What's his fucking Howard Nutlick? Howard Lutnick was on like a whole bunch of Fox News programs last week talking about how we're going to have the iPhones manufactured in America. And there was also this narrative that robots were going to do it, when it's like, how does that help us? You know, like, okay, but either way, we're going to have the iPhones manufactured in America. All these like cool tech items, electronics are going to be manufactured in America, and they're going to pay a lot to American consumers despite them not working them. Now for the iPhones to be exempt from all the tariffs, how are we going to bring back iPhone manufacturing?
Yeah.
If we're going to bring back any manufacturing, let's at least bring back the complex manufacturing.
Yeah.
Let's at least bring back the stuff that actually you need like a big supply chain to work out and complex machines to make work.
Yeah. Like China has a reputation for, you know, the sweatshops and stuff like that. And some of that certainly still exists. But like the Apple factories over there aren't bad jobs. They're doing like advanced tooling and shit like that.
That's not even like necessarily the case anymore. Like if you want cheap labor, you go to Vietnam, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Bangladesh.
new like cheap labor hub.
Yeah.
Exactly. China's like, they now have like a robust manufacturing sector and the most advanced like equipment in the world. That's at least why Apple does it, at least in Tim Cook's words.
Yeah, which is why there's all these like costs associated with building the factories here, because we don't have like the labor necessary to fill those factories, and we also don't have the robots and equipment necessary to fill those factories. Like there's all these complicated moving pieces that would make an iPhone like $3,000.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's why Tim Apple went to Trump and was like, hey,
buddy.
you better give us an exemption or everybody's going to be very upset they can't get their gadgets.
Isn't Apple like $1 trillion company?
Oh, yeah.
Or some shit like that?
I mean, it's like what, one of the big five or whatever in Silicon Valley, whatever that fucking thing is. But yeah, iPhones are exempt. Basically, China can keep the iPhone creation. We're going to be the ones stitching shoes together, though.
No, literally,
like,
man.
That's basically what we're doing. Because like if the goal is to make iPhones here and tariffs do that, it's not clear why they would be exempted from the tariffs.
It seems like the tariff would only be on that.
Right. And Caroline Leavitt was asked about this, and just a growing figure in the sort of hall of enemies that Hitto has here.
She's evil. I thought I hated, what was his fucking name? Matthew Miller? No.
Yeah. Well,
he was one of them.
That was a State Department spokesperson.
Who was the other fucking guy?
John Kirby?
John Kirby.
Yeah, they were State Department guys.
I thought I hated those guys, but at least they said nothing. At least when John Kirby was asked about Gaza and the ceasefire, he went up there and he said, it's classified. I can't really talk about that. Or I wouldn't want to speak for the president. She just lies.
Caroline Leavitt gets out there and lies, or she like triples down on the most Hitler thing you've ever heard. This is not the case, though. Here she is just lying and gaslighting us. But yeah, Caroline Leavitt is like part of our rogues gallery or some shit.
Absolutely.
Like she's the enemy of the show. But she said at a press conference, quote, President Trump has made it clear Americans cannot rely on China to manufacture critical technologies such as semiconductors, chips, smartphones, and laptops. At the direction of the president, these companies are hustling to onshore their manufacturing in the United States as soon as possible.
That's not the question.
She's just lied.
It's also just like not the question. Like you're just saying like a statement. The question was like, the essence of the question was like, why do this when you want to encourage this? The point of the tariff, in Trump's words, is to make it so that companies have to produce here. If you remove the tariff, they don't have to do that anymore. Yeah. No, they're hustling. You don't understand. They're doing it. So we took off the tariff, even though the tariff didn't affect anything.
Fucking Tim Apple was on some like Sunday show or whatever, or I don't know if it's a Sunday show, just some talk show. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, we just can't do it here in America because we don't have like the labor and the machines necessary.
Man, it really is Schrödinger's tariff. Like,
yeah, you just be whatever you want. It's Schrödinger's tariff. It's the cat's alive and dead at the same time.
It is like it's working, and it's working. It's going to bring manufacturing on, whether it's in place or the tariff's not in place. The threat of the tariff in of itself can do all of these things, and even the revocation of the tariff can do all of these things, all while not raising prices on the consumer. But sometimes it will raise prices on the consumer, but that's okay because losing money builds character. And if you want cheap goods, if you're mad at the tariffs because your goods aren't cheap anymore, that means you fuck with sweatshop labor, even though I'm not doing anything to address the sweatshop labor. I'm just making it more expensive.
There's no state investment.
What's going on?
There's no actual attempt to bring industry back here. The tariffs get to just mean whatever you want them to mean.
Yeah.
It's just like we got to explain the quantum mechanics behind fucking tariff policy. Oh my God, man. It's really bad. Now, again, 10% tariff still on every country, or at least every country we've got a trade deficit with. So people saying like the recession's off, I think you're a bit too optimistic.
Absolutely.
The market has rebounded to some extent, but I think, again, it's just a gambling machine, the stock market.
And also, like, recession is also, I think, just in general more rooted in, like, actual, like, macroeconomic indicators, not just, like, what the market is doing day by day.
And that's the confusing part is, like, JP Morgan put out that they expected a recession in 2025 after Trump was, like, putting in place these tariffs.
Yeah, they upped it, I think, because they had originally, their research center said 35% chance of a recession, and then after all this happened, they said 45% chance of a recession.
Yeah. But then they changed their recession prediction after Trump changed the policy, which is like, if you expect a recession, why are you trying to predict it based off like how Trump is changing his policies? You know what I mean? Like, shouldn't you be able to make a prediction for a recession based on like market trends and not just whatever the president is saying?
I think it's also because it's like we said at the beginning, the president does indeed have a recession button, but it's only a recession button and not a stop the recession button, because the policy can hasten like the already like bad trends going on, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not enough of an economist to be able to say, here are the 3 core principles of a recession, here's what to look out for, but I know the market is just one piece of it.
Yeah.
And like economic volatility is one piece of it. Not a big piece. Not good what's happening, but like, man.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get like a 1929 style market crash.
We were almost there. We were heading there.
Oh, if you didn't lift it, that was where we're
Not
headed.
even if we didn't lift it. If we didn't get the fake tweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were about to hit the circuit breaker.
The fake tweet definitely saved us. But yeah, I think if he doesn't remove those tariffs, or if whatever his name was, something Bloomberg, doesn't tweet that, then maybe we head for a 1929
we
style
also just like tanked
moment.
Global markets as well.
Oh,
I think on Monday, the Japan stock market hit the circuit breaker. They halted trading because the losses were too big. They needed investors to cool off. I think the Hong Kong markets were like down bigly too. I think those rebounded after what happened, but it's just like, man, this shit is so fake.
It's entirely fake, yeah. But yeah, it's I don't know if the recession's off. I don't know if you can say that yet because these tariffs are still in place, and who knows? Maybe this whole like up and down tariffs on and off debacle will happen every 90 days now.
Yeah.
Maybe this will just be a thing every month and a half. You know what I mean? Or I guess 3 months actually.
That's so fucked. He hasn't even been president 3 months yet.
I know. It's fucking crazy out here. He keeps saying like the justification behind taking these tariffs away is like they want to negotiate. We sort of already mentioned that. Again, no real concessions have been demonstrated, and also the EU started to retaliate, and now they have a 10% tariff.
Yeah.
So it's just not true.
And it's like, now he's saying that they came to the negotiating table. They were already at the table, and you had Scott Bessent out there being like, we want to negotiate. We don't want to negotiate right now. We need to let these... Scott Bessent or Peter Navarro or Nutlick or whatever. So many people were out in front of the media saying different things about Vietnam had come to the table with negotiations. They were asked about this by reporters, and they're like, do we really need to negotiate? It's actually, Peter Navarro is saying it's not about negotiations for the tariffs. It's about non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation, all this other thing like that. So actually these negotiations don't mean anything. And now it's because they want to negotiate. They can't get their story together anywhere. Because they're it's just the regime trying to make sense of whatever Trump is doing.
Oh, yeah.
On a whim.
Yeah, I don't think any of these guys actually know what the direction of the policy was at any given time. No. I think they're just absolutely making stuff up like dear leader type shit.
Well, because Trump himself doesn't even know the direction of the policy at any given time. Like
it changes with the weather.
Insane, man. And that's why it's so important to not just instill loyalists in your thing. You need people to actually advise you.
Yeah, and the reason that, like, I don't know, Italy or France or, the UK or whatever don't import our cars is because they don't meet the fucking regulations.
Oh, they're too big.
Like, those are trade barriers, but yeah, they can't fit down the roads.
Yeah, a goddamn Ram 1500 is too big even for our fucking roads. Shouldn't be allowed in our parking garages. I'm glad the Europeans have rid themselves of that.
Yeah, like, I think Australia, the Cybertruck isn't street legal. Like, it just doesn't meet safety requirements.
Oh, it shouldn't be street legal in the United States.
Well, I totally agree, but I'm just saying, like, sure, there are, like, what is it called? Non-trade barriers or something like that.
Or non-tariff barriers.
Non-tariff barriers, yeah. But, like, some of those are important.
Some of
those are dependent upon existing infrastructure.
It's
Europe's
like
not going to... Yeah, like, the fucking France isn't going to widen their roads in Paris so that they can drive a Ford F-150 down it. That's ridiculous. Of course not.
It's like the meat thing we talked about last week. Somebody
beautiful
got
beef.
on there and said, we have beautiful beef and they don't want to
Nutlick.
take it. It's Nutlick, yeah. It's because they just have different regulations. Because we pump our shit with hormones and whatever, and they don't want that. I don't know.
Because our shit's disgusting. The funny part, though, is that, like, looking at the market trends this past week, I genuinely cannot think of an economic policy more obviously harmful than those tariffs.
Yeah.
I don't think there has ever been, maybe in like U.S. history, a policy that was put in place and the market reacted so negatively so quickly.
Yeah.
Like it was genuinely insane to see, again, that the president does indeed have a recession button.
Wasn't like r/stocks posting the suicide hotline? Like, yes. It was crazy. I bet finance dudes were just in hell this week, especially people who, I don't know, work at like the stock exchange. But those are low-key gas pictures whenever something like this happens and you get the guys panicking, throwing the papers around like, what the fuck is going on? You see the red?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, like Trump puts these tariffs in place, the market nosedives on Monday, continues to nosedive. There's like no hope of it going up, except for when everybody thought that there was a 90-day pause. There was that jump, and then it goes down again. And then again on Wednesday, he announces the 90-day pause, and the market jumps again. Like, it was so obviously the economy was being hurt only because of the tariff policy. That was it. People just weren't projecting profit in the future. And now things are extremely volatile, and nobody knows how Trump is going to react, so they're like afraid to invest.
And that's just like, exactly, that just makes the market going forward just unhealthy. This is not a environment that people want to invest in because they can't guarantee like a return. Or they just, the risk of losing your investment is way higher than it was before. So people are going to offshore money and put it into foreign markets rather than the US market.
Yeah, and there's other metrics that we have now after this fucking diabolical week to show that, like, you know, there are more recession indicators. I think consumer sentiment survey came out, and they're at the lowest since 2008, I believe.
Nice.
There was something about mortgages being like refinanced or something like that. Like, there was more refinancing applications denied at any point since 2008 or something like that. There's all kinds of indicators that we can look at that show things are not looking good. Bonds also. I don't really fully understand like the metrics behind bonds, but I know when the yields jump and people don't buy more of them, that's a bad sign.
Yeah.
So lots of things looking bad at the moment. Who knows if we'll get a big kind of crash? It might just be a slow decline.
And it's like, a guy like me, I shouldn't be looking at financial news all week, but here I am reading like just Investopedia, reading a bunch of these things, trying to figure out what the fuck is going on. Like, that's not a state that any of this should be in. No. I wasn't doing that under Joe Biden.
I should be talking about book bans.
I wasn't worried about the 10-year Treasury yield.
Exactly. I should be defending trans women as women. You know what I mean?
100%.
I should not be talking about 10-year yields.
Making fun of school boards for wanting to ban a book that has two dudes kissing in it.
I should not be covering the stock market.
No, that's not what this podcast is about. I don't know about the economy.
Well, and I don't want to.
I actually know enough about it to be the number one economy podcast, but...
Well, I think I'm a political economist, quite frankly.
I think so, too.
We're analyzing the political economy here. One other dimension that we need to talk about, though, is insider trading. Because I think there's a little inkling of this. Because, like, we all know that most politicians do insider trading, right?
Yeah,
like, if you look at Nancy Pelosi's portfolio or, like, Dan Crenshaw's portfolio, they all do insider trading, and it's very obvious. But I do think it's pretty likely that Trump imposed these tariffs. Then he saw the market crash, and then on Wednesday, before he lifted the tariffs, he told his friends that he was going to do it. And then they bought the dip before it was announced publicly.
Isn't that? He literally tweeted out, "You should buy stocks now."
Yeah, 4 hours before he lifted the tariffs, he said it's a great time to buy.
Like, that's insane. I feel like that alone should be enough to make the case for insider trading. But like, kind of like with this, and with some stuff that we're going to talk about later on in the episode, some other big news that happened this week. Can you even like get him on any of this because of the Supreme Court ruling from last year?
Well, and because the Democrats are a useless party.
If say the Democrats weren't useless, what a world we would live in if that was true. You know what I mean? Is this not like an official act that would make him immune from like any persecution?
Yeah, but maybe you could get some of his buddies on acting on insider trading.
If we could get Howard Lutnick,
you know what I mean?
Throw that guy in jail. That'd be great.
Maybe you could get some administration officials or some people that he knows in the business world, like sent to jail for insider trading or something like that. But like that kind of shit doesn't happen. You know what I mean? The law doesn't apply to the rich type shit. There's also that video of him like pointing to his friends in the Oval, like he made $900 million, he made $1 billion, he made however many millions of dollars.
This guy made more money than medieval kings.
Yeah.
This guy made more money than you or your family will ever see in your entire lives.
Yeah, it's corruption all the way down. Like,
I know you can't retire this year anymore, but this guy made $900 million. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's not a single doubt in my mind that Trump was like, hey, I'm about to lift these tariffs and the market's going to rebound. Or somebody in the administration told a bunch of other people like, hey, the market's about to rebound. Because why wouldn't they? It's a chance to make money. You know what I mean?
They know they're going to reverse the policy, so why don't you let your friends in on it? It's kind of like your duty.
Yeah. So to round off these tariffs here, this tariff section, we got 145% tariff on China. Except for electronic devices, which was the thing we're supposed to be reshoring, but whatever. 90-day period for countries to quote unquote negotiate under a 10% tariff regime. We'll see if anything happens with this. Quite frankly, and maybe this sounds a little bit, what's the term, like campist of me, but I feel like maybe every country in the world should gang up on us right now because we're kind of off the rocker.
Yeah, no.
Like this is just like an America bad moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think like, I feel like we're kind of in a unique position where it's like, I think places still want access to the U.S. market because it is still like a rich and large market that can buy consumer goods that they make, especially poorer
biggest
places.
Biggest market in the world.
Poorer places like Vietnam. So it's like, it's interesting to think that it's like, yeah, we kind of are in a way putting a gun to their heads as well as our own. So.
Exactly. But I just feel like, I hope the EU and other like major trading partners don't just capitulate to the demands here. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump does get a few like notable trade deals out of this.
I think so.
Or like just one big notable trade deal that he'll point to as a success. I don't think it'll mean that much for like the American worker, the American manufacturer, but I think he'll be able to point to it as like, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. Like the USMCA, which he hates now, which he negotiated in his first term.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to be able to secure some deals. Like, I mean, Vietnam immediately wanted to negotiate because, like, again, they can't lose access to this market or else their operation kind of fumbles. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if he's ever going to get rid of the 10% blanket tariff just because he loves tariffs.
Yeah.
So it's like, unless he doesn't get rid of that, like, your prices are just straight up going up.
Yeah.
10% for clothes. You know what I'm saying? 10% for back to school with these tariffs is going to be insane work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's rough. I think either way it is just gonna suck, and it's like the tax cuts that have just, I think like the budget framework was approved by the House or something, tax cuts for the wealthy but not for us. It's like everything is just getting worse for us.
Yeah, everything's getting significantly worse. That's why I hope that some of our bigger trading partners like Canada, Mexico, the EU and whatnot, they kind of sort of push back on us maybe a little bit. I know the EU was gonna retaliate before he lifted the tariffs. They need to retaliate.
Which it's like, get some balls, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Push back because there's no trusting us. There's no taking us at our word right now. You just can't.
And I feel like that's just how it is for the next like 4 years. You know what I'm saying? I guess like the only hope low key is if he does something like so like egregious in this realm and other realms, like what we're going to talk about later, that just somehow there's some massive blue wave in the midterms, and then we can just impeach and convict.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun? And then we can impeach and convict again for J.D. Vance so that we can then instill the blue Speaker of the House.
I don't know like what the Senate map looks like, but like history would suggest that we're going to win at least one chamber.
Usually that's just what happens.
That's usually, usually in the midterms, the president's party loses a chamber if they had a trifecta. So that's what history would suggest. We'll see if that happens, though. We're still a ways away.
It's like the way approval ratings have gone, the way that Democrats overperform in like non-presidential elections.
Yeah.
They're more educated, you know what I'm saying? They actually care about things. And especially special elections makes me think that we're poised to like maybe win both chambers, at least win the House.
Yeah.
I'd be astonished if things keep going the way they are and we don't win the House, especially considering how we just beat big money in the Wisconsin election. But I don't know,
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Lastly, I don't know if you saw this, but this has been a sort of reoccurring, I don't know, thing online for a while now. Like the Gen Z boss in a mini thing?
What's that?
There's this video released years ago from these like Australian women own this like skincare company.
Yeah.
And they made this just like video doing these stupid dances. And it got a lot of conservatives on the right. It got a lot of people on the right very angry because it's like, women doing their own thing in the economy. This resurfaced and someone tweeted something like, this or tariffs. And it's like, dog, they just own a company.
Women making a video that may or may not be cringe or making everything in my life more expensive. Brother, come on, man. No, now that you describe it, I did see this. You can't have our Twitter feed and not see this. My God, man. Just the most annoying, just Nazis straight up on Twitter getting out and saying like, I would rather pay $30 for a fucking bushel of broccoli than have to watch women enjoy themselves.
You will pay $3,000 for an iPhone.
Yeah.
You will. No, it's like crazy. And it's like, I learned that their skincare company is a domestic manufacturer for Australia.
Oh.
Like they're doing precisely what they say they want companies to do when they come back to America because of these tariffs or whatever. They just don't like that it's women. So much of fascism is just based on this irrational hatred of women. It's crazy.
That shit is crazy, bruh. They can't stand seeing women in the workplace.
Like it's a silly video.
It's so wild that there's a lot of guys that genuinely cannot like work with women.
Yeah. Mike Pence.
Like
I hate commercials.
Me too.
I hate listening to them. I hate when I hear them, whether it's on TV or on podcasts.
Grr, I just can't stand commercials.
They're the worst. And the one place you can go to avoid commercials, like this one you're listening to right now, is patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Become a patron, and you get early access to our episodes, and they're all completely commercial free. No more interruptions.
And you could be one of our friends.
And that's arguably the more important point.
And, in trying times like this, friendship is what we really need.
Friendship's really important. And you can buy your way into being a friend of ours by heading over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. Again, early access to episodes, no commercials, access to all of our content before anyone else sees it. become a patron. Anyways, that wraps up tariffs. Time for immigration news.
Very much so.
I think we should talk about the happenings in immigration because we've got 3 major pieces of news this past week.
Many such cases.
Some of which are sort of good, but a lot of which are just evil.
Yeah.
Again, I'll remind you, one of the Hiddo edicts on top of I condemn political violence, on top of good things are good and bad things are bad, is there are no redeeming qualities to an ICE agent. Yeah. And this is always true. This is a maxim. This is an objective principle of the universe.
I've built my beliefs on that statement.
That's right. And we'll get to the ICE agent news in a little bit. But first, we got to talk about a story that we covered last week when we talked about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, because this was a man that was sent to El Salvador. And a few days ago, the Supreme Court ruled in a rare 9-0 ruling.
Incredibly rare.
That the government has to, quote, facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia to the United States.
Did they say, quote, facilitate and effectuate?
That's what was in the New York Times article. I know Caroline Leavitt said at a press conference that they said facilitate and not effectuate, which is basically just saying, like, yeah, okay, we're not going to do it.
Which said no.
But the Supreme Court did rule at the very least that they had to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, which is a major win.
In a rare good decision.
Yeah.
Clarence Thomas, rarely on the right side of history, came out and said, maybe the Trump administration has gone too far. I feel like this is the canary in the coal mine.
Clarence Thomas?
And
Thomas. Sam Alito?
You mean to tell me it's not 7-2?
Yeah, like the most evil people ever, maybe.
Yeah.
Some of the most evil people in the country alive today are making this ruling.
A 7-2 decision. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, the court did the right thing. Now I got to say Clarence Thomas did the right thing. That's crazy. Clarence brings sodomy laws back. Thomas.
And Clarence Thomas didn't even issue like a concurring opinion trying to water it down.
Yeah.
He just signed on to the majority.
Clarence, it's time to look at Obergefell. Thomas.
Yeah, exactly.
Said, you got to bring this guy back, dog. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Worth reminding you all before we get into it that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was deported to El Salvador without being charged with a crime or even seeing an immigration court under the Alien Enemies Act of 1789 because of an allegation from 2019 that he's a member of MS-13 based on him wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey and having allegedly corresponded with members of MS-13 in New Jersey, a place in which he has never lived.
Yeah.
That is enough evidence under the Trump regime to get you sent to a gulag in El Salvador.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Wicked work. Something that has already been litigated, by the way.
Yeah.
And in immigration court and determined that, no, he's not a part of MS-13. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, they tried to kick him out in 2019.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the evidence to do it. Immigration court said no. And then they came back to get him recently. And now the courts are saying
in fact, they had so little evidence that immigration court said, no, also, while we're not going to grant you asylum, we will grant you permanent legal residency.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a legal resident. This issue had already happened.
Yeah.
He checked in yearly with his ICE agents to make sure he was a good citizen or whatever. Mm-hmm. He was.
Yeah. Now, the Supreme Court ruling is pretty good, but it does sort of kick the can. It orders the White House to facilitate the return of Garcia, but it doesn't really have any power to make them do it. Part of this is just because SCOTUS lacks an enforcement mechanism, but it would be nice to see them try at the very least.
Yeah.
The ruling does, like, it's clear that it says facilitate, but it doesn't do a lot to require the facilitation.
What does it mean? Like,
yeah. This led the DOJ to say, quote, this is from a spokesperson, as the Supreme Court correctly recognized, it is the exclusive prerogative of the president to conduct foreign affairs. By directly noting the deference owed to the executive branch, this ruling once again illustrates that activist judges do not have the jurisdiction to seize control of the president's authority to conduct foreign policy, basically saying we are not bringing him back.
Buddy, they didn't say you can facilitate the return. They said you have to.
Yeah.
They don't agree with you, dog.
Yeah.
You lost.
The one thing that the Supreme Court did overrule, which we talked about, actually, I don't know if we caught it in last week's episode, was basically that the lower court set a date by which Garcia should be back. Supreme Court said, no, that date is basically not workable, but you do have to facilitate the return.
That makes sense because the date would have been before the Supreme Court even got to hear the case. So it's like, that makes sense. But in lieu of them not putting forth like a new date, the administration's just dragging their feet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And every day he's there, there's a potential that, like, I don't know, he dies or he's tortured or whatever.
It's a concentration camp.
It is. CSOT's a gulag.
It's a fucking work camp, man.
Yeah, you got Legal Eagle calling this like a slave camp at this point.
Liberal Legal Eagle.
Now, since this ruling, at least as of today, Sunday, April 13th, nothing has really been done. The district judge that's now overseeing this case ordered daily updates from the DOJ. They're basically doing nothing. I think what they're doing is sending a guy who literally doesn't know.
That's what he says. He says, I don't know. I personally don't know. She asks questions. He goes, I don't know.
which real for that, not knowing a single thing. I guess that's I don't know what to say about that, man. The judge,
me when we get arrested for sedition, when the sedition law is brought back in, did you say this about blah blah blah? I don't know. Is this you in this clip? Nah, it's not me.
No. No, the judge ordered more details from the Department of Justice, but those have yet to be made public. I'm pretty sure there was some shit happening over the weekend. I don't know if any of that has come out just yet, but things are certainly moving by the day, and this story may have developed before this even releases for the public.
Also interesting is that, wasn't it Bukele, the president of El Salvador, is visiting the U.S. this week. He's coming to the Oval Office this week. Bring him with you.
Bring him on the plane, man.
Bring him on the plane.
Yeah.
You're coming here. I don't see what the fucking issue is.
Yeah. Well, one of the claims from the administration is that they don't know where Garcia is inside of CSOT.
Somebody should.
But it's like, he's there.
Yeah.
We know where the camp is, the concentration. Yeah. We know where the gulag's at. Find him.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, you got people that work this facility. They should have, like, a fucking manifesto of everybody who's there.
Uh-huh.
Maybe if they don't know what cell he's in, because people are cramped in like a fucking 1-by-1 cells in there, you know what I'm saying? But find him.
Yeah, and like some people have been saying that he might already have been killed or something like that, and that's a very dark thought.
Yeah.
And I find it hard to believe that they would let like people deported from America just die as soon as they get there.
Uh-huh.
I hope not.
I hope not too. It sounds a bit alarmist, I would say. I think it's bad enough that he's just there.
Yes,
I don't think
100%.
It needs to be like escalated. You know what I mean?
No, you might
eventually it is. I think the bigger analysis here is that they just don't want him to come back and talk to reporters.
That's true. Yeah, 100%. They don't want him to come back because reporters will flock to him and he'll tell everybody about how awful the camp conditions are.
Exactly.
So they're going to do everything they can to not bring him back. And because SCOTUS probably isn't going to like do anything about it, they probably won't have to bring him back.
Nah, send the U.S. Marshals.
I mean, but doesn't Trump run the U.S. Marshals?
I don't know how that works. I
don't think that's ever happened.
The lower court judge has the authority to like deploy U.S. Marshals, but I think the DOJ like ultimately like controls the U.S. Marshals.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point of the U.S. Marshal, man?
I'm pretty sure we're in like explicitly uncharted territory for the Constitution.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't think there's ever been a point where the Supreme Court has ordered like court martials against the president.
That'd be kind of sick, though.
That would be sick, but I think that's like no more Constitution territory at that point. Now you might be asking, why did the Supreme Court rule in this way? You know, you got, as you said at the beginning here, we'd expect a 7-2.
Yep.
Even a 6-3.
Yep. Well, honestly, sometimes even a 5-4, and then have to go online and see conservatives berate Amy Coney Barrett.
Yeah. Honestly, I would have expected like a 9-0 the other way, honestly, sooner than a 9-0 this way. You know what I mean?
Same.
I think the reason the Supreme Court ruled this way is that because if Trump starts ignoring court orders entirely, the judiciary is basically done.
Yeah, they have no power.
I think the Supreme Court knows that, so they're drawing a line here, if only to maintain their relevance.
Even Clarence Thomas wants to protect his right to disagree with the president.
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. Like, if they let the judiciary just, like, be ignored, then it doesn't matter what any of their opinions mean. And we know that Clarence Thomas loves to get on the pen and write something foul.
Yeah, I think this is one of the rare moments we see one of the branches sort of quote unquote warring or just in conflict with another branch because they want to maintain their exclusive power.
Yeah.
If, you know, Trump wants to do fascism, they'll probably be cool with that. But if Trump wants to do fascism without the judiciary branch, then it's a problem. And I think that they can kind of see that if they just let Trump ignore court orders, then they don't matter anymore at that point. And I think that probably explains what they're doing. Also, if Trump can just accidentally, quote unquote, deport people and then sit on his hands and do nothing, then he can do it to anybody.
Yeah.
And again, there's no role for the judiciary to play in that instance.
No, yeah, if there's no consequences that are levied against anyone, not even necessarily Trump, but like even if the ICE agents that did this aren't like thrown in jail, or the ICE agents that are responsible for this aren't thrown in jail, then what stops them from just sending anybody, immigrant or not, to another country to rot?
Yeah, exactly. Because they already admitted they did it by accident. They said it was an administrative error. I know Carolyn Levitt got out there and tried to say that he was like the leader of MS-13
well, it's like,
or whatever.
I think what she was trying to do is say that it was a clerical error and that there was like a typo and not that the error was that they sent an innocent man to rot in a torture prison.
Yeah. But like either way, they said it was an error. And then if they can just get away with deporting people and locking them up in some concentration camp outside of the country, and they don't have to bring them back because they don't know where they are now, then yeah, they can do it to anybody. And they can just say, oh, that was an accident, but we can't get them back because, they're in El Salvador
They
now.
could just drop you in the middle of some foreign territory, battle bus style. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. There's nothing you can do about it. So I think maybe those two reasons are why this Supreme Court sort of pushed back here. Now, if Trump does just disobey the order, then I don't know that there's anything that can be done.
Yeah.
That's uncharted territory.
Maybe they'll regret all of their decisions last year that would just give presidents more power.
Yeah. And I know that like Jackson and even Lincoln were like pretty sort of, I don't know, fuzzy when it came to listening to the Supreme Court. Of course, Jackson did the Trail of Tears and whatnot, but I don't think it was this explicit.
Yeah, and I know that we've argued in that same vein sometimes for good things are good, bad things are bad.
Of course.
But not like this, though. Not like this.
Well, yeah, he's ignoring courts, and it's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And it's bad to ignore courts in this instance. So, it's, good things are good, bad things are bad. Speaking of bad things, though.
Oh, no.
We're going to move on to our next piece of immigration news here. And this is, this is depraved. It's evil. And I don't think there's really any other way for me to summarize this without just jumping into it.
Yeah, it's almost beyond parody, for sure. Wicked headline.
I'm just going to read you this headline from The Guardian, and then we'll get into the story, which is almost perfectly summarized in the headline anyway, but I'll just read it here. Quote, ICE director wants to run deportations like Amazon Prime for human beings.
That's quote, Amazon Prime for human beings. That's what bro said.
Yes.
Man, what a world that we've got into. What...
There are no redeeming qualities to an ICE agent.
No.
There's no redeeming qualities to ICE as an organization.
Realistically, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? What does that even fucking mean?
I mean, we can follow it up with a quote from the guy who said it. So, ICE director Ted Leon's at the 2025 Border Security Expo. So, Nazi meeting.
No, that's good. Nazi Comic-Con?
Yeah.
Nazi Comic-Con. We got C2E2 for Nazis? What is going on?
He said, quote, we need to get better at treating this like a business, like Amazon Prime, but with human beings. And then another quote from the story is, quote, Leon's also spoke highly of other new technology being potentially implemented in the deportation process. He expressed hopes that the agency could utilize artificial intelligence to free up bed space and fill up airplanes, allowing ICE to deport immigrants at a quicker pace.
What does that mean? How? This is...
I mean, he's just like fantasizing about inflicting suffering on people and fantasizing about making the government quick and efficient at moving people in mass, which we should know by historical analog that that's a really bad idea.
See, if we could use AI to look at someone's face and analyze what their face looks like as a predictor of immigration status and crime, then we could really speed up this deportation process. We could subject everyone to this procedure. We could get them out of here quick. 2-day shipping. Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, and I can already see the comments where it's like, oh, but they're only going after criminals or whatever. It's like, no, they're explicitly not.
Yep.
The El Salvador or the Abrego Garcia was sent to El Salvador even though he was literally innocent.
Legal permanent resident.
People like students are being scooped off the street because of their free speech. Like it's nonsense. They're not just getting people that are violent criminals.
Yeah.
So genuinely bad.
Depraved,
chilling.
Like that's just a nuts thing. Amazon Prime for human beings is just one of the craziest things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Never once could I have come up with that sentence.
Yeah, again, I don't think anybody should want the government to get really good at moving a lot of people really quickly.
No. In fact, it's usually bad when that happens.
We should know that is a really bad idea. So maybe not that, but that's a little story for you from the Nazi Comic-Con that happened recently. Lastly, though, and then we have a little bonus one after this, but lastly, we shouldn't really be surprised by this, but Trump has floated the idea of sending incarcerated U.S. citizens to that gulag in El Salvador. And this idea was backed up by his press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, when she reiterated the idea that the administration is sort of kicking around the concept of sending citizens to El Salvador.
Yeah, she got in there and she tried to defend it by saying like, oh, it's just going to be the most violent criminals that are sent to El Salvador. Still not cool.
Yeah.
Still not cool.
Yeah. Hot take. Even if you did commit a crime, I don't think you should be put in a gulag.
Real.
I don't think that you should be sent to a concentration camp.
Real as hell.
In El Salvador.
Absolutely. That you can never get out of.
Yeah.
Like,
and of course, and that the government can't find you in once you're there.
Yeah, they can never bring you back from, apparently.
Yeah. And of course, they say first it's only going to be violent criminals, but then eventually it becomes, more petty criminals, and then it becomes people that are using free speech, just political dissidents. We know where this path goes down.
It's like, I mean, look at the Lake and Riley Act. They use the Lake and Riley Act to try and say that, like, oh no, we're only going to automatically detain the most, like, violent immigrants, the most violent illegal immigrants are accused of crimes with that. And I don't know, some Democrats vote for it because they think that, oh, I gotta fuck with the cops here. And then they immediately invoke the Alien Enemies Act, and all of that, none of that matters. They're just sending innocent people to El Salvador. They're taking Venezuelan barbers out. They're taking Venezuelan pro soccer players that are living in the country, saying that they are alleged Tren de Aragua members or MS-13 members. Yeah. None of this matters if due process doesn't exist. Like,
and I saw some crazy stat that it was like, of the 200 people, something like 70% don't have any like credible
75%,
claims. 75% don't have any credible claims about being in TDA. So they're literally just scooping people off the street based on tattoos. Like, that's explicitly insane.
And it's like we went from a very quick escalation from the Lake and Riley Act passing like 2 months ago, saying that they're just going to detain the most violent criminals in ICE detention centers here, to we are kicking every Venezuelan national out and sending them to a concentration camp. And if you really are going to trust him on this with U.S. citizens and prisoners and getting sent there, I don't think there's any hope for you.
Yeah, it's bad. Lastly, on immigration, a little bonus piece of news, just because it's not like a full story. Mahmoud Khalil has been obviously working his way through the fucking judicial system lately, and a judge just recently ruled that Trump actually can deport him for his political speech. And the reason they cited was because Marco Rubio sent a letter basically saying that Mahmoud Khalil is like a threat to foreign policy interests.
Yeah, no, the judge literally got out there and said he can be removed on the basis that his presence undermines U.S. foreign policy, saying that due to his, quote, beliefs, statements, or associations, his presence poses, quote, potentially serious foreign policy consequences.
That's crazy.
What the fuck? Potentially serious foreign policy consequences? Throughout his
one guy
throughout his tenure, even doing like the encampments and leading the student protests and negotiations with Columbia University, we just gave more and more money to Israel.
Yeah,
like
nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Columbia did not divest from Israel.
Joe Biden threatened a red line once. And that was not because of the protester. Like, he threatened a red line once and then did not enforce the red line and then authorized $4 more trillion to Israel. Like,
it doesn't make any sense. Again, like if they can scoop him up just because he's a political dissident and say that he's a threat to foreign policy, they can do it to anybody, obviously. But it's also insane that in order to come over here and be a green card holder like Khalil is, you have to be like a Zionist.
Yeah.
Like you, or at the very least, you can't be vocally anti-Zionist. Otherwise, we can kick you out. Not a very free society.
No, not a great look.
Yeah.
Not a great look at all. I also saw that the administration is looking through every single student visa's like social media to look for pro-terrorist content.
That's insane.
That is insane.
I guess I can never leave the country because they would not let me back in.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
They would search my phone and find out some of the crazy shit
I could never cross that Detroit-Windsor bridge.
No. Because I try to come back in, they would plug my phone into the machine.
Immediately get detained.
And suddenly every Hitohead's information is out there. It'd be over.
Suddenly the postcard list just...
Yeah. They got hundreds of addresses in their database
exactly.
now. It's a bad idea.
Sorry. But the postcard list, sign up though, for real.
Yeah, for real. It's safe and we're not going anywhere.
It's safe and it's really cool and I'm protecting that information. I promise.
I'll double encrypt it if I have to leave the country. But I know Mahmoud Khalil is going to appeal and hopefully eventually he'll find a way to not get a terrible court ruling.
He's also going through like 2 separate trials too. This one is with an immigration judge in Louisiana, I think. And then he also has a federal like court appointment where he can actually raise like constitutional questions. He couldn't do that at this one. This was just about whether or not he was deportable, I think. But there's like 2 separate trial things going on about his status. It's kind of just a wait and see type of thing. I know they're going to appeal this decision.
Yeah, and it's like, of course, you can't come over here and like be here and whatnot if you're like a member of a terrorist group. I know that's sense. Like, documented. You can't do that. He was literally just protesting.
Yeah,
like that's all he was doing.
Not pro-Hamas.
And the Bill of Rights, the Constitution is unambiguous. Anybody here has constitutional rights. It does not say citizens. It says people.
And that's
people are equal under the law.
I got motherfuckers who have never paid any attention in civics class coming out here and they yell about the seconds there to protect the first brother for the last 10 fucking years or however long I've been paying attention to politics. And then they watch people's human rights just be taken away and say like, oh no, that only applies if you're white and born here.
Yeah, exactly.
No, yeah. You only get those if you're white and born here. They're not just good things that all humans should be entitled to. Those are for me.
They're given to us by God, but only us. Specifically us.
We're God's chosen people.
Yeah. Another sort of interesting tidbit here is that in Marco Rubio's letter, I think he said something about these protests like making Jewish students uncomfortable or prohibiting them from going to class or whatever it may be. And we've talked about plenty, especially back like last spring, about a year ago at this point. We talked about how that was just a whole load of nonsense. But for Mahmoud Khalil to be hit with that specifically, as if he was the one preventing Jewish students from going to class, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like he was just a spokesperson for the protesters.
And it's almost like it sets a precedent that if you organize a protest and any individual does something in that protest that may be bad, maybe against the law, that you as the protest organizer should be responsible. And that's kind of a dangerous precedent to set. You know what I mean? Because he's just being pinned for the entirety of anything that happened in this movement, whether or not there was anti-Semitism or any individual instance of Jewish students being intimidated by any of these protesters.
Yeah.
Like, you can't pin that on a protest organizer, especially when, like, the protest itself is not anti-Semitic. If you organize a Nazi rally and they do Nazi things, yeah, I think they can get your ass. But if you organize, like, I don't know, like a regular conservative rally and the Nazis pull up, maybe you're fine with that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
I personally don't like the conservative rally, but yeah, your actions are separate from the Nazi.
And you know, this administration is the same one that pardoned the dude with the Camp Auschwitz hoodie at January 6th.
Yeah.
I have a feeling they don't actually care about anti-Semitism.
I think that's done a lot more.
It's just an Israel thing.
I think that's done a lot more to promote anti-Semitism than any of the pro-Palestinian protests.
Yeah, it is very bizarre that if you want to be here as an immigrant, you just can't. It's like you can speak about any other country. But you cannot talk poorly about Israel or we will deport you.
Yeah.
It is very weird. And not in the way where it's like, oh, Zionists run the government, because that just borders on anti-Semitism, like actually.
Yeah.
It's just that our politicians are committed to Israel as a proxy state.
Yeah.
Because of the military-industrial complex and
there's a lot
geographic significance and stuff.
Yeah, land aircraft carrier type shit. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no, that is.
But it's like Mahmoud Khalil could come over here and talk shit about Canada if he wanted to. He could protest against Canada. And he would not get deported.
Oh, if he protested against Justin Trudeau, I think they'd love him.
Exactly. Or yeah, if he came over here and talked about China and just like hated on China and stuff, they'd fucking give him a job in the administration probably.
Oh, absolutely. They give him like a Heritage Foundation job.
But if it's Israel, suddenly he is an individual as a threat foreign policy.
Which insane.
Stupid.
Brother, just do the foreign policy.
Yeah.
You don't have to listen to this kid. You should, because he's got a good point. But for the sake of this argument, you don't have to.
The congregation is missing someone. And that someone, dear listener, is you. The congregation awaits you over on our Discord. If you go into the description of this episode right now, there will be a link to join the Head in the Office Discord where you will find more than 1,000 like-minded individuals for you to interact with. And maybe most importantly, we'll be there.
1,000 members strong. It is a burgeoning community of Hitto-heads.
That's right.
Ready to receive you into their arms. Make you a part of the community. Vest you as a Hitto-head.
Over on Discord, we have discussions. You can interact with other Hitto-heads. And maybe, for some fun, we can do some community events. And we know that you want to be a part of that. Only available over on the official Head in the Office Discord. Anyways, moving off of immigration, we should talk about voting.
I love voting.
The democratic process.
I think we all should vote if we can. Whoa.
And that's sort of the contention here. Can you vote?
Can you?
Maybe if this bill passes, you should check.
It's a right.
Yeah.
But is it?
By far the least lethal story this week, but still democracy ending. Keep that in mind, is the progression of the SAVE Act in
folks,
Congress.
Your rights are being wronged, to sum it all up.
Yeah, last week the House of Representatives passed the SAVE Act 220 to 208. SAVE, of course, is an acronym for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act. It's always an acronym.
Interesting. It's always a corny acronym, too, that they try to make a big capital letters word. Interesting, though. There aren't 220 conservatives.
There aren't. 4 Democrats voted in favor of this bill because they're stupid and bad.
Real as hell.
Because they're stupid and bad.
Myself.
4 Democrats. I can't remember all of them. Jared Golden was one of them. Henry Cuellar, the last pro-life Democrat in the House, was one of them. The bill would have passed Actually, I don't know if it would have passed. I don't know what quorum is in this case, but either way, Democrats should not have voted for it anyways. The SAVE Act would compel all 50 states to require proof of citizenship when registering the vote. That is what this act does. And now, if this legislation is passed, it would accept the following forms of identification for registering to vote. You could either have a real ID compliant driver's license that, quote, indicates the applicant is a citizen, a valid U.S. passport, a military ID card with a military record of service that lists the applicant's birthplace in the United States, a valid government-issued photo ID that shows the applicant's birthplace was in the U.S., or a valid government-issued photo ID presented with a document such as a certification of birth that shows the birthplace that was in the United States.
I'm not fucking bringing my birth certificate to the goddamn voting registration place.
Mm-hmm. Well, they want you to.
You asked me to bring my birth certificate anywhere. That's fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yeah, a lot of common IDs, including ours, Michigan driver's licenses, don't have like citizenship status or place of birth status on the driver's license, because why would it? And also, of course, immigrants can get driver's licenses. Like that's a thing that they can do. And according to the AP, quote, as of January 2024, about 56% of driver's licenses and IDs in the United States were real ID compliant, meaning that somewhere around 44% or so are not compliant with this law. And a lot of people would not be able to register with a driver's license alone.
So there's like 44% of people that need either a passport, military ID, or a fucking birth certificate.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck, man?
To show citizenship status.
I don't even have a passport. Thank God I have a real ID.
Maybe we should get passports.
I'm not leaving the country. Under this administration, I am not leaving the country.
Real ID, by the way, was something created after 9/11. It was one of those like fake solutions to terrorism, quote unquote. Apparently, it's just a bunch of extra paperwork to show that you're a citizen, like on an ID.
Aren't you gonna have to have a real ID to be able to like get on a plane this year?
Oh, that's crazy. I don't have one.
Oh, you don't have a real ID?
I don't think so.
When you got your like license renewed when you turned 21, you didn't get it?
Well, what is the difference?
My ID's upstairs. I'll show you after the show.
Okay,
it's like the little star in the corner.
The article I was reading says the star doesn't really count.
The star doesn't count?
At least for the purposes of this bill, the star doesn't count.
What does count?
That would count, I guess, for like flying and shit like that.
Because I had seen something saying that like real ID might not count for this, so it would just be like passport, birth certificate. Wait, the star doesn't count?
In the article I was reading from the AP, it doesn't count. You need like something that shows the birthplace in the United States.
There's nowhere on my license I think that says I was born in fucking Genesis Ascension Hospital.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Why? I don't have a passport.
Yeah.
I'm not bringing my birth certificate to register to vote. This is the dumbest fucking thing.
You can be a citizen if you're born to American parents, but you were born in like Italy or something.
Yeah.
You're still a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
And if your birthplace says, I don't know, fucking Florence, Italy or something like that,
you're fucked, buddy.
You wouldn't be able to register to vote. That doesn't make any sense.
I guess you would need a passport. But then it would probably be harder to get your passport. It also costs money to get a passport.
Of course, and that was my first point in all of this, is that this is just a poll tax.
Yeah.
Because it takes time and it takes money, more importantly, to get a government-issued ID and to get a birth certificate if you don't already have yours, or if you need some other form of identification. None of this shit is free. It's just a poll tax.
I guess I need to ask my mom for my fucking birth certificate.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Another point here is, quote, the legislation also says applicants who submit the federal voter registration form by mail must present documentary proof of U.S. citizenship in person to their local election office under a deadline set by their state. This basically makes online and mail registration impossible. Pointless. Like, you can't register by mail or online.
Sure, you can register by mail, but you still got to come in. Yeah, you can register online, but you still got to come in to the regular place you would register in person.
Yeah.
I feel insulted.
Yeah.
Like
I registered to vote online when I was 18.
It's so convenient, especially in Michigan.
Yeah.
We got like same day voter registration too.
Yeah, Michigan's voter laws are actually like our election laws are a lot better than they used to be.
Probably not anymore. Not after this.
Well, if this bill passes, then
not
it's
after
really
this.
going to suck. Also important, if the state purges its voter rolls, re-registration will be a nightmare. This is a thing that states are known to do, especially Republican states. They'll just purge voter rolls, 2 months before an election.
Didn't Texas kick like 200,000 people off the voter rolls before the general last year?
Yeah. And they get away with doing it every time because
Crazy.
there's nobody enforcing these voting laws against them. But the point is that people argued when this bill was being presented in the House that, like, are you going to make everybody re-register because, you're so concerned about citizenship status? And the person, I think it was actually Chip Roy,
I think he's the author of the bill, yeah.
He said, no, everyone's still going to be registered, but these rules would be in place if you had to re-register for any reason.
So if you move...
If you move, if you're kicked off the voter rolls because of purges, if your voter information is lost or deleted or something like that, you'll have to re-register again under these rules. And if you don't have your birth certificate or something equivalent, you're fucked.
Birth certificate, passport, or real ID that says where you're fucking born.
Or time to go into your fucking clerk's office.
What the fuck, man? Voting's already such a goddamn hassle. And I'm a pro-voter. Yeah. I am. I fuck with voting. But even I sit there and think on election day, God damn, I really got to go in today?
Uh-huh. Well, that's why I'm an absentee voter.
Gotta get a fucking passport.
That's why I'm an absentee voter.
Well, now you're gonna have to go in to register.
Yes, I might as well just vote in person. There's also a concern that this law will deny a lot of women from being able to vote because, of course, they change their last name in many instances when they get married. Yeah, and that no longer matches their birth certificate name.
Many such cases.
And there's no guarantees in the bill that this isn't a problem. So even if you show up, even if you take all the time to fucking call up your mom and get your birth certificate, and you make sure you got your license, and you carve out time in your fucking busy schedule to go into the clerk's office, they may still say, well, these documents don't match.
Yeah, if you got a license and you pull up, and if you got the fucking star on your ID and think you have a real ID, but it doesn't say where you're born, and you pull up to the clerk's office, you're like, hey, can I register to vote? They say, I don't know if you're a citizen, go get your birth certificate. You're a married woman, you change your name, you go get your birth certificate, you come back, they say, oh, well, you could have been born here, but these names don't match. I don't know what's going on. Then you got to go get a passport. This is the dumbest fucking thing.
And that takes even more time. And we know the more barriers you put in front of voter registration, the less likely people are to do it.
Oh my God, I know. I think it's such a hassle.
People will just give up.
So fucking annoyed having to register to vote and even just going to vote. But I know it's important, so I do it every goddamn time. How can I look at a regular person and say, look at these 3 hoops, please jump through them, it's really important?
Yeah.
How can I convince them that when they already think that government doesn't fuck with them?
Yeah.
The more hurdles you put, the less people vote. Yeah. And that's what Republicans want. Didn't Mike Johnson get caught on Hot Mic this week talking about like a special election in some state where they said there was going to be like 18% turnout, and he's like, oh, that's good for us.
I didn't hear about that, but I believe it. Mike Johnson's a bitch.
Like, oh, that's real good for us. And it's like, yeah, it is.
Less people voting is good for you. Not something I'd be very proud of.
That's what I'm saying.
But of course, this like the whole like being married, changing your last name thing matters a lot because birth certificate is the most common form of documentation for citizenship, I would think. Right?
Yeah.
Like most people have some kind of access to their birth certificate or they can get a new one. That's the most common thing that they bring with them to register under this fucking bill. And if that doesn't work, then they just can't register.
What's wrong with the fucking social security number?
I don't know. Well, immigrants can get social security numbers.
Yeah, but like once they like check the database, once they actually like check the voter registration things and they see your social security number, can they not have a list that cross-references that to citizenship? They know who has each social security number and they know everything about you based on your fucking social security number.
It's the same thing with like taxes. Like, why do I have to do this?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, yes, immigrants can get social security numbers once they get naturalized. Whatever, however they fucking get social security numbers. It's not as like the Republicans say it is though. But like they would know that I'm a citizen with my social security number and they can fucking check the list and then just deny my registration.
Yeah.
If I try to do, and then arrest me. If I try to do it and I'm not a citizen because I committed a crime, I tried to vote when I can. Like,
well, I think the burden should be on the voter, not the government. The government should have to do less work. The individual citizen should have to do more work to participate.
Stupid, you know, if we had about social security number,
if we had like an automatic voter registration system, this wouldn't matter. Because it would only automatically register people by like cross-referencing social security numbers or something.
It really doesn't make sense when you don't. And then when you move, when you update your mail, it just like updates your precinct. Wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great?
That would really be great. I'm sort of burying the lead here, of course, because this isn't a problem. Yeah. This bill is attempting to solve the problem of voter fraud because they think that non-citizens are participating in elections and skewing results or something like that. Of course, this isn't a problem. I have a quote here from the AP. Quote, a recent review in Michigan identified 15 people who appear to be non-citizens who voted in the 2024 general election out of more than 5.7 million ballots cast in the state. Of those, 13 were referred to the Attorney General for potential criminal charges. One other involved a voter who has since died, and the final case remains under investigation. It's just not an issue in the United States.
Gas.
There isn't this like overwhelming amount of undocumented immigrants that are attempting to participate in U.S. elections. Yeah. One, because it's already a crime. You already go to jail for this sort of thing or get hit with a crazy fine. And two, because it's just not a thing that they do.
Well, what if the margin was 12 voters?
So true.
What if? Huh?
So true.
What would you say to that, Democrat? Huh?
Yeah. So it's looking bad. There's a question if this will pass in the Republican Senate because they do need a filibuster-proof majority. And I'm just gonna throw my hat out there. I think it will.
I think it will.
I think it will.
But it better not.
I think you'll get Slotkin. I think you'll get Peters.
I saw a clip.
I think you'll get Fetterman.
Slotkin was on Fox News, and she said something like, well, this might prevent some women from voting. And then Martha McCollum or some shit said it's not that fucking hard to change your documents. And it's like, well, it actually is.
And it costs money.
It actually is a barrier. It quite literally is something you have to do to vote. But I digress. So maybe they don't get Slotkin.
Okay.
For the first time.
All right, maybe they don't get Slotkin. Then maybe this won't pass because I feel like Slotkin is like the bellwether here. You know what I mean? But I feel like the Democrats could push this one through.
They'll get Fetterman.
Yeah, they'll get Fetterman.
Shit, maybe they'll get Schumer.
Might get Schumer. But yeah,
based on how that guy's been acting, man, I
could just with no like knowledge of how the senators have talked about this, I feel like this is something that Democrats might join onto to make themselves seem like moderate or better on immigration. When again, this isn't a problem and will just stop actual citizens from voting.
This is going to get those Connecticut Democrats. This is going to get Maggie Hassan. This is going to get the other fuckers. Man.
All the moderates, yeah. We'll see if they can scoop up 7 votes. The 7 votes that they need to make this happen. But yeah, bad bill all around.
Bad bill. Not a good bill. If the Senate passes this, there's no hope.
Yeah.
There really is no hope. Not only do we need a blue wave in 26, we need a blue wave that gets rid of these fuckers.
Yeah. And it's literally moving in the opposite direction. Like, we should just have automatic voter registration. You shouldn't have to register to vote. What do you mean?
We already have, like, abysmal voter turnout rates compared to, like, other countries, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like 60% for presidential elections.
We just don't have an involved democracy and way lower for midterm elections.
And one of the reasons for that is that there's a barrier for entry, which is essentially a poll tax already.
Yeah, registering to vote is so corny. That shit sucks. And then I got to check if I'm registered and I got to look it up so I don't waste my time.
And it's relatively easy in Michigan now.
Yeah, like, it is.
In Michigan, it's not that, but in a state like fucking Texas.
Same day voter registration is gas. Like, I did just pull up to the polling place and be like, can I register to vote and go vote? And they said, here you go, sign this. Can I see your ID? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it's easy.
Blah, blah, blah. And then I go vote.
It's easy and it makes sense. But like this bill also suspiciously does not allow for student ID to be an acceptable form of ID, which of course, if you don't drive as a student, which a lot of students don't, then you can't register to vote, even using a form of photo ID that shows like, this is me. So not great. Wow. All around pretty bad.
Yeah.
You should not like this. And Democrats should tank this shit.
Democrats should tank this shit.
We'll see what happens next
maybe
week.
Maybe if Alyssa Slotkin leads the charge, I'll forgive her. But maybe I won't.
I don't know if this is enough. It's going to take a lot.
Especially after some dumb shit she pulled this week as we move into our extras.
All right,
segment.
let's do it.
You know what I'm saying? So Alyssa Slotkin introduced her first bill as a senator into Congress this week. And this bill is aimed at banning Chinese cars from entering the U.S.
Come on, dog. Who fucking cares?
That's what I'm fucking
What do you mean?
saying,
I would buy a Chinese electric vehicle so fast.
In this moment.
I would literally go out. I would literally go get one right now.
You're wasting your goddamn time. Fucking breaking this bill to ban the Chinese cars. That's what we're fucking focusing our energy on. Per CBS, the bill titled, quote, the Connected Vehicle National Security Review Act, at least it's not an acronym. At least it's not an acronym, aims to allow the Department of Commerce to review and potentially block the sale, importation, or transaction that involves a, quote, connected vehicle or component designed, built, or supplied by anyone controlled by or subject to the jurisdiction of a country of concern, including China. That would include components and connected vehicles manufactured by Chinese companies that operate in third-party countries like Mexico.
Dog, this shit's so stupid. You just have a part from China and you can't get the car?
I guess, bro. I don't even know. It's just like anything that like China. This is. I can't. She's trying to like sell this thing as both a national security bill and a protecting Michigan's auto industry like kind of thing.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a moment where there's somebody threatening to blow up the world with nukes, and the opposition party is saying, well, nukes do have some use cases.
They do, yeah.
It's like, dog, he's threatening to kill us all. Like, why are you arguing in favor of the thing that he's doing? Yeah. Can you fucking lock in, please?
Are you so CIA brained? Are you so 3-letter agency brained that you can't like ease off the China bad shit just for like one instance?
It completely ignores like, what do you mean this car is spying on me? Like, my car?
My car's spying on me?
What do you mean?
What does that matter? And it's like, it seems like anything that China could be doing with a car that I buy, they could do with Google Street View.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And she says, quote, Chinese vehicles could collect huge amounts of data on Americans and America, which poses a significant national security threat. Americans' personal data are infrastructure, continuing to say. Chinese vehicles, which are dirt cheap thanks to state subsidies, could collect full motion video of sensitive sites 3D mapping, and geolocation of individual drivers, all of which could be sent back to Beijing. Despite the polarization in Washington right now, protecting U.S. citizens should be nonpartisan. And I look forward to working in a bipartisan fashion to pass this legislation into law. Brother,
I don't care, man.
what national security secrets could be exposed from Beijing seeing little old me drive to and from work, to and from the studio, and then to and from the goddamn coffee shop?
Nothing.
I'm sorry. What is Beijing going to do with that information? They're going to find out that it's hard to park if I get to work past 9? Oh no.
Also, I love like the derisive way she talks about state subsidies.
Yes.
They flood the market with their state subsidized cars. It's like, dog, we subsidize everything.
These fuckers love to act like China is cheating when they engage in like state subsidy for industries that they want to grow. We could do the same thing.
And we do with like farm products.
We do.
We subsidize our subsidy holds up the agricultural industry, and then we send those farms or those agricultural products elsewhere.
Notably, when we did Tariff 1 against China for the whole farm trade war thing that he was doing, 97% of tariff revenue went to subsidies for farmers.
Yeah.
We also fuck with subsidies. We could do subsidies harder in competitive industries if we wanted to. Just make the cars a little smaller and a little cheaper, and then we could get them in foreign markets.
Man, this is so stupid. Why is this what you're doing right now?
And it's also just like in general, like I feel like cheap public options for like consumer goods can exist without completely undermining the private sector.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They
like,
talk about it like it's a tsunami of cheap goods that's going to destroy your life and kill your kids.
Or even if the U.S. decided that they were going to subsidize Ford Focuses, you know what I mean? A Ford would make the Focuses better. You know, they'd focus a little harder on the engineering. You know what I mean? If they decided they wanted to subsidize cheap Ford Focuses, that's not going to stop other people from wanting to buy different cars.
Yeah.
People are always going to want like better things, you know, in life. They're always going to strive to and have the will to go out and do better to get better things. Nobody's going to want to. Some people will stop at the state subsidized car. Maybe I will because that fucks. Other people aren't. Just because there's a public option doesn't mean the private option is like moot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, okay, sure, China does pour lots of money into like the fucking cars that they make or whatever. Why don't we do that?
Exactly.
Like it's not a bad thing to subsidize industries.
Yeah, having cheaper options available only serves to get like more people access to things that they need. In the case of America, where we have a car dependent society, 21st century America, you need pretty much a smartphone. You need a phone, you need a car, and you need like a fucking computer and internet access. You know what I mean? If there are cheaper options for that, that's not going to undermine it. The existence of the Chromebook doesn't undermine Apple sales. Yeah. You know what I mean? If there was a government Chromebook, people would be screaming about it, pretending that Apple is going to fucking tank the next day, when that wouldn't happen at all. People are still going to want the MacBook.
And it kind of just forces competition that benefits the consumer.
Exactly.
But like that's, they don't even really care about that.
The competition would have to mean something. You can't have industries that get to, although it's illegal for industries to collude to price fix.
Yeah, come on. Everything's owned by like 3 guys.
It's illegal to deport somebody that a court order said you can't deport. You know what I'm saying? We're a little bit past that in this day and age. Like, it's just, I think that argument is stupid. And also, broadly, I feel like this is not the goddamn time to be introducing the anti-China car bill.
Like, what is the point of it? Like, they already can't sell EVs here.
Yeah.
What cars is China selling in the United States anyway?
I have no idea. But it's like, now you can't even import them. Like, I think you couldn't, even if you were like a, I don't know, Chinese diplomat, you couldn't even bring your car here to drive around.
Yeah. There's also a whole bunch of laws regulating like car emissions that are just totally fucked in the US. Yeah. They just encourage bigger and bigger cars that we desperately need to reform.
Yeah. Because it's like, trucks got so big because once they hit like a certain weight, they get to ignore certain fuel standards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
or it's like some weird calculation, like, you know, cubic emission per, I don't know, kilogram or something like that. Something stupid that just encourages companies to make the biggest possible car.
Yeah.
It's like, that's why shit sucks here.
Exactly.
It's because we have a bunch of
regulations that are bad because they're like half measures. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're not actually doing anything good. If we like, you know, better regulated the car industry, maybe through some investment their way, maybe focus more specifically on EVs and green energy and that sort of stuff, then maybe we could compete worldwide. Especially if the cars were smaller, then we can import them to Europe. But like we're not doing any of that. We're just kicking and screaming.
Yeah, there's no reason we have to actually like we make the rules. You know what I'm saying? There's no reason we can sit there and say like, oh no, it's this inalienable fact of the universe that when a F-150 becomes 5,000 pounds instead of 4,900 pounds, that makes it a different classification of car. We can just say, no, that's clearly a street car. That's not a commercial vehicle. That's not blah, blah, blah. We're going to regulate it like a SUV. Like, we could do that if we wanted to, but nobody's got balls. You know
reality bends to our will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the world can be whatever we want it to be.
We are the makers of history.
I want my cheap Chinese EV.
I do.
Because they're like $9,000, man. That's
crazy.
So cool.
That's so sick.
But Biden had to fucking ban them. It's stupid, man.
And then Alyssa Slotkin's like, you know what? This is how I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to do rising star in the party.
Oh my God.
This is what I'm going to do. Man.
I hate it. Speaking of like Michigan politician news, you see Whitmer in the Oval?
I did see Whitmer getting praised in the Oval Office.
Oh my God. Well, it was Whitmer in the Oval.
With Matt Hall.
She went there for like a private meeting that it ended up being like a public spectacle thing. Yeah. I think he did it to like own her, quote unquote.
Oh, you think so?
I think it was like a public, shaming, degradation kind of thing.
Oh shit, okay.
But then there was that image of her and I think Matt Hall sort of in front of like the mantle in the fireplace in the Oval Office, and she's covering her face with the folder.
Oh, that bangs.
I thought it didn't bang. I think it looks stupid.
Wait a second.
She's covering her face because like she doesn't want to be seen in the Oval. I think that's a bad look.
Do you think it was supposed to be like a private meeting?
I think so.
That went public. Like it wasn't supposed to be known that she was going to the White House.
She started
something.
She went there something funding related for the state of Michigan, and he started signing executive orders on camera while she was there. And of course she's caught on camera. People start taking pictures of her. She covers her face. Bad look in my opinion.
You think it was a bad look?
I think it's a bad look just because.
Yeah, I guess you got to own it.
Because like why are you there at all? Like this isn't the time to be going to Trump and like asking for whatever state subsidies. Like he's not going to give them to you, and if you're going and groveling, you're not really representing your constituents.
Yeah,
I think it's just a bad look overall.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Some people are saying like it looks good though. That is like funny and kind of humorous that she covered up her face. I don't know. We'll see how it plays, but I don't like it very much.
Word. Well, I mean, we're talking about Democrats doing things that are sort of so-so.
Yeah.
What was cool this week is Bernie went to Coachella and opened for Claro.
Yeah, he's locked in.
Did you see that?
I did see that. And he took a picture with her?
That shit fucks so hard. Yeah, just Bernie Sanders got out there and did a little fight the oligarchy speech before Claro comes on. Miss Flamin' Hot Cheetos.
He's a cool guy.
He's a cool guy. No other
cool
Democrat,
guy with a cool crowd.
No other politician is doing it like that. You know what I'm saying? Who else is pulling up to Coachella? Who else has the fucking sway to pull up to Coachella?
Who has the swag to pull up to Coachella?
You think Chip Roy could pull up to Coachella?
No.
Boo,
Gavin
tomato.
Newsom?
Oh, boo, Fucking Gavin Newsom? No, none of these people could pull up to Coachella and get the crowd like Bernie got him. He got him going. He really opened it up. He's 83 years old and just running laps around every other Democrat, man. It's insane.
It's hard to believe. Yeah, like there's a few other people trying to do it like him, like Tim Walz is trying. And I'll give Tim Walz cred for the shit he's saying out there. He's not doing poorly. But nobody can do it like Bernie. I also learned recently.
Yeah.
That Gavin Newsom is like a stoicism type guy. He's big into like Marcus Aurelius meditations, which to me makes a lot of sense spiritually.
I think so. Yeah.
Like he seems like the type of guy that would read meditations and not really understand it, or picture himself as like the emperor type. You know what I mean? Feels right that he thinks of himself that way.
You're right, man. I got a negative opinion of people who call themselves like stoics.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like, it's very conservative coded to call yourself a stoic online. The only people that do that are like, it's like Jordan Peterson types. You know what I mean? Like, it's people who think that Jordan Peterson is like a profound person go and say like, yeah, I don't fucking feel it. It's adjacent to men being like, I don't need to fucking feel anything, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you didn't understand the text, brother.
And I'm sure to some extent, like the stoicism ideas have been co-opted by the right wing to fit a certain narrative.
I think that's how it is. I don't have any like actual critiques of like the philosophy. I don't know enough about it to have a genuine critique about it. But I know that every motherfucker that calls himself a stoic online is damn near Nazi adjacent.
Oh yeah, and it's just like it's really easy to say like, oh, just go with the flow when you're in an incredibly privileged position, and you can just go with the flow because there's no material consequence to being upset about something.
Man, Gavin Newsom continuing his rightward shift.
Oh my! But I feel like that fits so well.
It does.
He's like, I'm reading Marcus Aurelius. I'm sure you didn't get it. Like I'm almost positive you did not understand it. Even when I read Meditations, I found it pretentious. Like I was like, all right, man.
He said, come on, buddy, calm down a little. Pipe down, buddy.
Yeah, you're an emperor. All right, dude, chill out.
You don't understand. You don't understand the working man.
Marcus Aurelius just got that banger though about like poverty being the mother of crime or whatever.
Yeah,
so I gotta give him props for that.
Give him his flowers.
He definitely wasn't like a stupid guy, but like even some points I'm like, all right, dude.
You said, calm down a little bit. Well, that's how all philosophers are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I remember.
that's true.
I remember sitting in college trying to read Hegel, and I'm like phenomenology or something.
They made you read Hegel.
I had to read
That's
some
evil.
Hegel, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah,
like Hegel, and then there was like a phenomenology like textbook I had to read.
Phenomenology of spirit. Yeah,
I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Hegel damn near unreadable. Like I don't know.
That text is fucking unreadable.
Damn near unreadable. Marx too. He can catch the heat. Like I know. I mean, he's the
I had to
Godfather and
read some
whatnot, but-
passages of Marx, and like not my philosophy class, but like some elective I was taking. This dude just busted out like, here guys, read these 15 pages. Felt like I was sitting at my desk for 5 years.
Marx is better than Hegel. Certainly understandable if you work through it, but bro does write very confusingly. I got beef with Marx for the way he writes.
Especially as a college freshman who did not read any of this before. Just opening my eyes to what's happening. Like what?
Well, they indoctrinated
you. Say that's true.
Charlie Kirk should have been there 4 years.
Marx
5 years
required
ago.
reading to podcaster pipeline. Here we go, man.
Keep coming.
Charlie Kirk really should have shown up to MSU sooner. Holy shit.
Anyways, what else?
What else? We got. Did you see a pro-Israel group came out and they said they want to investigate Miss Rachel for spreading terrorist propaganda?
What?
Yeah, some pro-Israel group just said that Miss Rachel, the children's YouTuber, needs to be investigated for spreading terrorist propaganda because she made some posts talking about like having empathy for children in Gaza.
There has been a whole conservative shtick recently against empathy. Have you noticed this?
Oh yeah,
Like I know, like ideologically, of course.
Yeah. There's been undercurrents for a while,
but now they're more like Ben Shapiro comes out and he's like, yeah, empathy's bad.
Why? Why?
Like if you're out here as a conservative saying empathy is bad, that's genuinely.
Do they
like,
elaborate?
Some subhuman shit. I don't really know. I don't really entertain it, but I don't really entertain that kind of shit.
Empathy is bad. Well, because if you have empathy, then you wouldn't want to deport all these people to the torture camp.
If you can put yourself in their shoes,
empathy,
that's bad.
Empathy is what they're like a 14-year-old boy. Like empathy is what's stopping you from making the hard decisions. You know what I mean?
Empathy is what stopped me from getting a girlfriend.
None of these women have empathy for me. What are you, an incel?
Yeah,
this is crazy, man. Let's be adults.
Yeah.
Let's be adults.
Let's lock in, please.
Man, they need to be adults down in Florida, though. Let me tell you.
Okay.
Awful segue. But there was a teacher in Florida that was fired after calling a student their preferred name without the student's parents' permission. This is the first teacher to actually like be fired since Ron DeSantis passed. There were so many stupid fucking bills. It was either Don't Say Gay or the Parental Bill of Rights or like the Stop Woke Act that actually like enshrined in Florida state law that you cannot call a student anything but like the name on their birth certificate or some dumb shit like that without filling out some form that's like a alternative identification form that has to have a parent's consent. Some kid asked teacher, hey, can you call me this instead? I don't even know. None of the reporting is saying whether or not it's a trans thing. I personally don't care whether or not it's just a trans thing. Of course, this bill is strictly there to affect trans kids and not the Samuels that want to be called Sams.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, in absence of it identifying whether or not that's the instance, this is still just abhorrent.
Yeah, and like I don't know how I can express it more clearly, but like children are not property. Like you don't own them. That's like an individual being right there that has their own feelings and emotions and things that they want to be called and ways they want to associate themselves. You don't own everything about them.
Yeah.
Like
it's insane, and that's what Ron DeSantis was pushing when he did the whole Parental Bill of Rights, like bullshit back in 2022. And this is kind of the after effects of it. You get a teacher that calls a student a fucking nickname or some shit like that because the student asked him to, or an alternative name if the student asked him to, and now their contract doesn't get renewed and they lose their job. They lose whatever like years for retirement they built up within that school district. Yeah. She had been working there as a fucking AP English teacher for like 12 years. Beloved in the community. And now she's fired because of this?
Yeah, and like you said, it's not because she's calling Samuel Sam.
Exactly.
Like, it's because that she's being kind to her.
Allegedly, maybe. Yeah. You know what I mean? But like, it's something so disheartening about this. And when asked for a question about it, the school district said they, quote, support parents' rights to be the primary decision makers in their children's lives, and Florida law affirms their right to be informed. That is, the parents. How can children ever be expected to grow into fully fledged adults if they can never make decisions about their lives? Especially the supposedly like ineffectual decisions, the no big deal decisions like, I want to go by Samuel instead of Sam, or God forbid, I want to go by Mary instead of Mark.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These are incredibly personal decisions that I say fuck the parents on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And of course, the conservatives have no response for what if the parents are abusive. You know what I mean? Or what if the parents agree with you and hate the idea of their kid being transgender or whatever and would, enact violence or emotional abuse upon them if they found out they were trans.
Yeah.
Like they don't care about that.
It's a parental bill of rights to abuse your kid, bill. It's because Florida also has that forcible outing legislation, right? Like if it comes to your attention that a kid is gay or trans, you have to tell their parents. Like that's insane.
Damn near irresponsible. Outwardly,
that is irresponsible. Yeah, no, that is just straight up irresponsible. That's just not okay at all. That's just going to get more kids killed and abused and beaten. Like that's not right.
Like students go to school, of course, primarily to learn, but also because it's a social environment where they can develop their social skills.
Yeah.
If you don't let them do that free from influence of whoever, then they're not ever going to be able to.
Especially in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Huge, and especially in high school. They're teenagers. They know they're learning who they are.
Especially you're 17 in high school and you can't tell your teacher to call you a nickname. Your teacher could get fired for calling you a nickname. You're going to be an adult in a year. Yep. There's also this idea that parents have absolute control over their child until they turn 18. Then what? You throw them to the wolves?
Yeah, and it's a lot of conservatives picture, I don't know, teachers indoctrinating 9-year-old students to be trans.
Yeah.
When you're in high school, which is when a lot of people start to understand their gender and sexual orientation and whatnot. When you're 15, a lot of people can know. Yeah, a lot of teenagers know what their sexual orientation is.
A lot of them have figured it out.
A lot of people are starting to understand what their gender is like and how it fits with, modern stereotypes and whatnot. A lot of trans people know that they're trans when they're teenagers. And if you want to get the state involved and force teachers to out them to their parents, that will result in violence and emotional abuse.
Yeah. That's just fucked up.
It's evil. Yeah. The cruelty is the point.
That's just fucked up. And now we're actually seeing the shit backfire against not even backfire, intentionally fire against teachers.
Yes.
Imagine a world. You know what I mean? Intentionally fire against teachers
effect.
And lose her job because of this now.
Yeah.
And that student is probably traumatized because this happened because they wanted to be called a preferred name.
Mm-hmm.
Preferred name.
It's really not that big of a deal, guys.
It's really not.
Florida is trying to employ children in the agricultural industry right now.
Y'all got way bigger problems to worry about down there.
Ron DeSantis just said we should employ kids for dirt cheap labor.
Yet that same kid can't go to their teacher and say, hey, can you call me Sam instead of Samuel?
No, we're not going to respect your identity as trans, but you will get in the fields.
Hey, Samuel, you have to go work a 12 tonight picking oranges.
Yeah.
Can you call me Sam instead? No. No.
Get back to work.
I will lose my job. Now I think you need to go to yours. Good luck, buddy.
Yeah, go clock in for
tomorrow.
Go clock in for third, kid.
Do you work at one of those plants that gives you a 15-minute break so you can get this assignment done? No? Oh, man, tough shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Tough shit.
Sorry, Samuel.
Yeah,
man, that's terrible. I fucking hate Florida. Terrible place to be. Leave if you can.
Leave if you can.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't, that sucks.
Yeah, that blows me.
That really sucks. My final little extra that I have to bring to you all today is some good news. You know what I mean?
Finally, some good news.
Back during the Biden regime, they not unconstitutionally but unjustly instituted a rule in his final days of office. Back when he knew that he didn't need to get held accountable for any of this, that would limit bank overdraft fees to $5.
How could he do this?
How could he do that, man?
These small banks, what are they supposed to do?
And thanks to Trump, our dear leader, and the Republicans that came with him this week, the Republican majority in the House voted to rescind this unjust rule, and it is now on the way to Trump's desk to sign. And I just got to say, man, for far too long, the little man has been able to just squeeze banks dry. They really have. We've just been able to get over and constantly overdraft our accounts on purpose to buy iPhone and luxury goods. And now we can't get away with it anymore.
It's you have to pay back the amount you overdrafted.
Every time you have to pay back the amount you drafted and a fee.
It's not like I can overdraft $100 and I only got to pay $5 back.
Yeah. It's not like he said free overdraft fees,
yeah.
Free money from the banks. You can take whatever you want. He just said he gave him 3 options too. It's you either limit it to $5, disclose the APR that this loan would be charged with, or some other option that wouldn't be the $5 or something, but is a little more complicated.
Yeah, and it's bank overdraft fees are one of those really simple things that piss a lot of people off. And this is one of those instances where the government tries to limit the harm that they cause, and then a Republican comes in and says, Have at it.
Have at it.
Like, what do you mean? The government tries to do a good thing here, objectively does a good thing. Bank overdraft fees are fucking exploitative as hell. And then Trump comes in and says, no, banks, have at it. You exploit as much as you want.
No, banks, you actually did really good.
And his supporters will fuck with it. His supporters will be cool with it. Nobody's going to do anything about this. Nobody's going to be upset about this. If only because, there's a slew of other things happening, but also because, like, they just don't care when he directly hurts his own base.
Yeah, it's pretty gas. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. There was like a conservative that like introduced this bill in the article that I read that said something like, finally, we're getting government out of the free market and competition and innovation can make services better for consumers.
What are you talking about, man?
Brother, I don't want to pay $35 for an overdraft.
It was a limit on overdraft fees.
Exactly. Like from a $35 overdraft is ridiculous. Like the people that overdraft on average, I think have between like $250 to $450 in their bank account. These are people that are living paycheck to paycheck that kind of sometimes need to dip into an overdraft to be able to survive. And those $35 overdraft fees or whatever they are only functioning to keep them in that cycle of poverty.
Yeah.
Just little by little, they are chipping away at any money that they do eventually earn.
Yeah, it's that old adage, like, it's expensive to be poor.
Yeah.
Because of shit like that.
Like, if you need to dip into your overdraft fees so that you can dip into, like, overdraft territory so you can feed your family for the week, that, I don't know, fucking box of cereal you cost just went from the already expensive, like, $7 to $42. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
the people that overdraft will be hurt the most by overdraft fees.
Yeah, and it's just going to make them overdraft more. Like, it's like a positive feedback loop of being poor.
And it's like, this dude's talking about the free market. We're talking about a limit on overdraft fees.
Yeah.
Why the fuck are you talking about the free market? Well, what do you mean the free market to do fucking what? I overdrafted once, and I just didn't realize how little I had.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like move money around in my accounts or whatever. And luckily I have a credit union, so I wasn't charged an overdraft fee at all. Shout out credit unions. But like it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
If you're just like buying things, or if you're going to the grocery store, or if you live paycheck to paycheck, it's a really easy thing to do by accident.
I also overdrafted one time. I was fucking freaking out about it because I'm like, I'm not fucking paying $35 for this bullshit. And then I like looked at my options. I also have a credit union too, so shit was goated. They still have an overdraft fee though, which kind of pissed me off. But I had like points. Like they gave me points, and I was able to just use my points to pay off the overdraft fee. So I'm like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
But like, that's the kind of shit that just pisses people off.
Oh yeah.
And the rule didn't even go into effect yet either. So it's like it's kind of one of those things where it got me looking back at Biden like, why didn't you make this effective immediately? Why would you make this go into effect in the first year of Trump?
Banks don't need time to adjust.
They don't.
You could just say like, this is a new rule.
Do you know how much money a bank has?
Yeah, all of it.
All of
they
it.
Got all the money.
That's where all the money is. It's in the banks. It's in the stock market. It's not under my mattress.
They'll still make a killing off of overdraft fees with just $5. They'll still make a bunch of money that they don't need.
Yes.
Off of overdraft fees, but whatever, man.
Yeah, whatever. Thank God Trump got rid of that draconian rule to stop poor people from having to pay stupid amounts of money to overdraft their accounts.
We were not thinking about the small banks. We were not thinking. We've been thinking about,
the family-owned banks.
The greed.
What about the mom and pop banks?
We've been thinking about the greedy, hungry, working class family trying to squeeze our banks for all we got.
What about the once family-owned bank that's been passed down generation over generation, JP Morgan?
Exactly.
What
they should not
them?
be made to just hand out money.
Exactly.
That's not fair.
These are businesses. Why are banks businesses? I'm not going to get it.
Fucking ridiculous, man.
Fractional reserve banking, my ass. You know what I'm saying?
Anyways, I think that closes out the episode this week.
That does close out this week's episode.
Again, as we said last week, just going back and forth, tariffs, immigration. That's just the news.
Yeah, tariffs. It really is just tariffs, immigration for the last like 3 weeks, isn't it, man?
Yeah, and that's what it is for the foreseeable future.
I can't even remember what happened in like the first month.
Tons of bad stuff, I'm sure.
I remember it being
Sig
bad.
Heil. We got Sig Heil the first day, actually. First day of the administration. We get a Sig Heil from Elon Musk and all kinds of other stuff.
Gavin Newsom had Charlie Kirk on and praised him. Said his 13-year-old loves him.
Yeah.
Buddy, that's bad parenting.
That's bad parenting.
That's real bad parenting. I understand that there's a lot that like you can't control about your kid. Like they are going to be subject to outside influences like at school and whatnot when they're out of your purview. But like, my kid won't like Charlie Kirk. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and it's like, Doug, you're a Democratic politician in like the biggest state in the country. Like if anybody knows how to fix that, it should be you.
Like, teens rebel. Your job is to convince people that you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
You can't convince your own son.
Your son.
I get that teens rebel, but like not like that. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the son reverse radicalized the dad.
Oh my God, yeah,
Gavin
literally.
Newsom fucks with Charlie Kirk.
The son pulls up and he's like, oh, look at this sick video of Charlie Kirk owning this college student. And then Gavin Newsom's like, oh yeah, he really did own that college student, didn't he? Now I'm going to disallow trans women to compete in sports in high school.
Look at this sick video of Charlie Kirk opening up his binder and not letting anybody else see the research he's pulling from so nobody can check what he's actually citing.
Wow.
Isn't that sick?
Dad, look at this cool video of Charlie Kirk cutting off a college student's mic when they make a point and then just gish galloping for 5 minutes afterwards before he takes another question. Didn't he do a good job? Oh, yes. I think he made a really good point.
I'm going to have him on my podcast.
Let me give him a long-form interview where he can actively pull me to the right and get me to come out with rightward positions. California's hell, man.
Man, Gavin Newsom, do not let him anywhere near the presidential primary.
Oh, no. Please, God, no.
He's so evil.
Please, God, no.
So
Do not let
evil.
Gavin Newsom in that presidential primary, man. I'm so scared for 2028.
I'll crash out.
It's going to be my biggest anxiety for a while.
Yeah, but we got a while to figure that out.
It's 2028, and it's Trump secretly invoking the Sedition Act, and then us releasing multiple episodes, and then knock, knock, knock. I get a black bag over my head, and then...
Coming soon, folks. Coming
soon. Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah. Got a while to compartmentalize that one.
Exactly. But for now, we got to give a really special thanks to the people that have supported this podcast in general.
Oh, yeah.
Special thanks to Caden Kraut, Lord Todd the Radiant, Chris the Postman, Chrissy Begg, Dylan B, Mike Chaplinsky, Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Kilojoy, Rich Toro, Tari Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mube, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Big Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cutsford, Yuck, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfish and Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's boyfriend, Ted Cruz's boy toy, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cocker Tarleson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron at his Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Taylor for Content, Corey Chambers, Ellie N, Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grottler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Savic, Casey and Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, AK Gon, Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C.,
Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinet, KCC, Say Yes to Wes, August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capilot, Jeff Sines, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Fruggy Gumdrop, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, I don't know why I'm like all out of sorts here. The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ender, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Particulon, Memfreds, Lauren, Uncharismatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Kevin Kisaya, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dewfairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azim Fida Hussein, Girl Squirrel Mukes, Brooklyn G, Noverk the Dastardly, Goldthorn, Addie Book, Merlin, John from Houston, Anaya, Cryle Bongi, Sergeant Pookie, Connor Nix, Jordan T, Hoodie, Kim Kitsuragi, Rose Grimm, Kristen, Jamie the Young Extremist, Jack the Heathen, Archer W, Evan Mingo, AJ Torres, Elo Nico, Jake Hall, Seth Schmidt, Daniel Stock, Noah Sajas, Majawat, Ultra the Dragon, Mercy Boku, Dick Cheney and 6 Inch Heels, Luke Wechter, Henry Kraggles, Tristan Ringsmith, and my mom. Thank you all so much.
Wonderful.
For supporting the show on Patreon. If your name's not there, let us know and we'll fix it.
We will.
Because, Patreon membership changes and we want to get you if you deserve it.
Exactly.
And make sure you vote.
Make sure you vote.
Yeah. We're not requiring real ID.
And make sure you sign up for the postcard program.
Oh, yeah. The link to vote is in the description if you're a patron.
Yeah.
The link to sign up for the postcard program is on the Patreon.
And notably,
you got to find it.
You do not have to be a U.S. citizen to be involved in the postcard program.
We let anybody vote.
Yep.
We let anybody get a postcard.
Yep.
Because we believe in democracy.
That's right. One world.
Some shit like that. World government.
Yeah, one world government.
One world hiddo government. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a good week.